Magdalena, a Filipino horror story. P.S. I'm not much of a writer, but this experience is something I must share to the world. 19-year-old, found dead in Intramuros, possible suicide. I remember reading the news, just as with the first one, another kid jumped off of one of Intramuros' old buildings, and like the first jumper, they shared the same class, possibly even the same circle of friends. I moved here in Manila almost a month ago, coming from rural Philippines. Manila was busier, more crowded, and I hate to say this, dirty. I moved at my Lola's, grandmother, house. She lives with two of her grandchildren, Johnny, who was around 11 or 12, and Pauline, who was closer to my age. She usually spends her time studying and attends a nursing school in Intramuros, one of Manila's oldest landmarks. One thing you have to know about Filipino culture is that parents tend to put pressure on their firstborns. A lot of Filipino parents, especially those with poor backgrounds, consider going abroad as a great success and an honor to the family, and this fate is exactly what Pauline's parents groomed her to have. Pauline was quiet. She would wave and smile as she retreat back to her room, but aside from studying, she doesn't seem to have any other activities. Not even a single friend came to visit here in my stay. She's not even weird or anything in that regard. It just seems like she had devoted all her life to be a nurse, to make her parents proud. Considering things now, with whatever it is that has been happening lately, I really wish her life stayed like that, just studying and making everyone proud. I really do. I was playing Borderlands 2 with Johnny, when Pauline came out of her room all dressed up, makeup and lipstick on, everything. How do I look? She asks. Like a clown, little Johnny responded. She turns her gaze on me, wanting feedback from someone her age. You see, it's the first time we've ever seen her like this. She seemed really excited and she barely go out. I told her, it's fine, and asked her what she's up to. She says that she had been invited to a party and just wants a break from all the studying. Not 2 seconds later we hear honking. I opened the door and was greeted by a girl, in her late 20s, giving me that Hollywood mean girl vibe, and 3 guys, in their best attempt to look cool and tough with their leather jackets. It's really hot in the Philippines. At the time, I didn't think much of how uncomfortable Pauline looked when she went with them, as we all thought they were close and was just giving her a ride. You know how you could tell if 2 people are really close with just their body language? Yeah, I didn't see none of that, and looking back, I knew the faces in the papers were familiar. I always knew. Was it guilt? I can only hope so. It's around 1 a.m. when me and Johnny were getting ready for bed. Pauline was supposed to come home an hour ago. At this point, our Lola was starting to become frantic, trying to reach her phone to no avail. Police were called, but we were told that it's too early to call for a search party as she had been missing for only a few hours. At this point our Lola was on her knees, begging and crying, telling the officers that this is not how Pauline acts. She was turned away and we let her rest. By 11 a.m., that's when we heard it, the screeching of tires, the sound of teenagers panicking, and then we heard a loud knock, 3 loud thuds to be exact, followed by a louder screeching of tires. I was the one who opened the door. I was the one to see her like that, her skirt torn to pieces, her dress ripped apart, blood and bruises everywhere. She didn't need to say it. I knew what happened. Anyone in my shoes would have known. We rushed her to the hospital. She wouldn't speak or move, just stare into the empty air. Everyone was angry. Shout and screaming filled the hospital room, but Pauline, she just sat there, empty. It wasn't until the 3rd day did she had the consciousness to speak. She wouldn't tell us what happened, but she didn't have to. She seemed normal, despite everything that happened, despite everything that was taken from her. She seemed to still have her spirit intact. Regardless of how angry we were, the men involved belonged to wealthy families with great influence. Whatever little money our family was able to manage for court, they would brush off. Pauline's parents weren't rich. Everything they had they invested on her education, and what little amount left was paid for her medical fees. Eventually they gave up. Pauline wanted to move on. It's time we forgive and forget. It's time to move forward, she says. A month later, everything's going back to normal. Pauline took a break off of school and just stayed home. It's as if the events from last month never happened, or so I thought, until I found her crying in her room. I asked her what happened, and she told me that it has been more than a month since she had her period. She begged me to buy tests for her and I did, and they all tested positive. She's indeed pregnant. Upon hearing this, she just sat on the floor, same blank stare she had before but worse, knowing that all her dreams, all her parents' hopes and dreams ruined by a single night. She wouldn't speak to anyone, nor is she eating, she just spends her days in her room, and I hated every single sight of it. Knowing that her dreams of becoming a nurse in the United States will never come true broke her more than what those men did to her. She didn't deserve this. I was tasked in bringing her food to her room, and every single time she would tell me to go away, but around the 5th or 6th time I do this, I started to pay more attention with what's happening on the room, and then I heard it, singing. Magda. Lena. Ikaw ang aking tanglaw. Magda. Lena, akoyd bibitaw. Magda. Lena. You're my light. Magda, Lena. I'll never let you go. I thought it was a weird song, but she would repeat it over and over again, every night. The next morning we heard screaming. No, it's more of a shriek than a scream. I rushed into Pauline's room and then I could see nothing but blood, too much blood in fact, and then saw her in the corner, covered in crimson, shaking in fear. We rushed her to the hospital and we were told that she had a miscarriage. I thought to myself that it's impossible, a miscarriage shouldn't have that much blood. Everyone drew a sigh of relief, and Pauline was to spend the next 4 nights in the hospital and me and Johnny were to stay with her. Pauline wouldn't sleep, as if the thought of it was terrifying for her. It's on the 2nd night when the nurse came in and gave her something to help her rest. This gave us comfort knowing that she'll be able to sleep, and we did. I woke up a couple of hours later. I checked my phone and it's 2:09 a.m. I felt the room was beginning to chill. I thought nothing of it since I was in an air-conditioned room, but still the chill felt unnatural. I laid back again to sleep, but then I saw Pauline's eyes, staring at mine, locked on mine. I asked her what's wrong, but she wouldn't respond. I found it weird that she wasn't moving, not a single muscle in her face is moving but her eyes. If her eyes had one emotion at that time, it was fear. I have spent enough time in no-sleep to know enough about sleep paralysis, but this doesn't seem to be it. She was conscious and so was I. We locked our eyes, but hers kept moving from up to down. It wasn't long till I figured that she was trying to signal me to look at the foot of her bed. And I did. Slowly but surely, with my heart pounding in terror, I traced the ceiling down to the foot of her bed, and that's when I saw it, or her. She looked exactly like this. She looked like someone wearing very, very old Filipino garb, I'd say the 1800s, but her hands up to her elbow was covered in blood, fresh blood. Luckily, just as she slowly floats from the foot of Pauline's bed, she didn't seem to acknowledge my presence. I could feel my blood pumping and it's making me dizzy. I could feel my eyes turning, and the last thing I remember seeing was Pauline's eyes moving, trying to do what her body could not escape. Her parents came in the next day. I told our Lola what happened, and she freaked out and asked me not to stay at their house anymore. Even little Johnny moved in with his parents and Pauline was left to our Lola's care. It wasn't until our Lola's funeral years later did I learn exactly what happened. I asked Pauline's mom how she was and she would rather not answer the question. We talked about Johnny and a lot of other things. Eventually I told her the story of how Pauline sang this weird song and her face turned white. It was an old urban legend about a midwife who lost her newborn during a careless accident where the baby fell from his mother's arms. This drove the midwife insane. Every day the midwife would carry her dead newborn's corpse and sing a song, Magda. Lena, to it, believing it calms the dead baby. The husband grew worried and tried to separate the midwife from the lifeless carcass. The husband soon decided to bury their dead child without the midwife's consent. Upon finding out, the midwife was further driven into madness. She would go out and do her duty but secretly abort the children instead of safely delivering the babies. The whole town started to notice when an unusual number of failed pregnancies became too high. The townsfolk went to the midwife's house to confront her, only to find the husband's dead body and the midwife caressing the decaying remains of her recently deceased child. The townsfolk executed the midwife, leaving her lying next to her deceased family. They said that women with unexpected or unplanned pregnancies who cannot afford having the baby could sing the song and the midwife would come at night.